Hello, everybody, and welcome back to ZakIsCinema. Yes, welcome home, everybody. If you find that one of your biggest problems in life right now is having nobody that'll talk to you about movies, well, buddy, please engage with me in this parasocial relationship right now because I am providing you that person you've been looking for. So let's talk movies here together and consider joining here at ZakIsCinema. Today we are going to be doing a spoiler review and discussion for the new movie called Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, directed by Gore Verbinski. A man from a tech-ruined future repeatedly travels back in time to recruit strangers for a last-ditch mission to stop an AI-driven apocalypse before humanity disappears into its screens. So as we jump into the review and discussion for this movie, I've been hearing a lot of buzz for this movie. Unfortunately, I did miss it at this year's Fantastic Fest. I couldn't get into any of the secret screenings, but I heard a lot of people hyping this movie up, and I was very excited to check it out. Me personally here, I am not too familiar with Gore Verbinski's catalog, but I do really love the movie A Cure for Wellness, and I think that's the only movie I've seen directed by him, so I was so curious in checking it out, seeing if I'd like it more than A Cure for Wellness, if it'd be similar, very different, or if it would kind of give me that itch and drive to check out the rest of his movies. So if you recommend any of his other movies, please let me know down below here. But before jumping into the review, like I said, this is going to be kind of a spoiler breakdown, review, and discussion, so if you have not seen the movie, check it out first, and then please join us back here. We'd love to have you. But yeah, let's jump into the review section, starting with the positives or just the things that I enjoyed most about this movie. And right off the bat, I adored this movie's opening with how goofy and theatrical it really is, and it immediately sets the tone. It immediately kind of reminded me of that scene from Back to the Future when Marty goes back and talks with his dad late at night, pretending to be Darth Vader, giving him his mission, but instead of scaring somebody into action or doing something, our main character, played by Sam Rockwell here, he shows up from the future and immediately kind of launches into this Broadway-style exposition scene about how society has collapsed in the future due to people's cell phones. And he goes on this beautiful exposition scene that immediately grabbed my attention by discussing how people eventually turned morning scrolling and checking into their phones, and it slowly over time turned into that all-day doom scrolling. And so much so that people stopped leaving their beds entirely, and eventually the only companies that survived in this scary future were the medical companies, insurance companies, and pharmaceutical companies. It's utterly ridiculous, but in the best way possible, and intentionally ridiculous where it kind of sets that immediate tone that you're going to be expecting throughout the movie here. And throughout this initial exposition scene with Sam Rockwell's character, I love the initial diner setup, and that through the dialogue we find out that our main character here has been in this exact same diner trying to convince people to join his ragtag group of members here over 100 times, trying to recruit different people to fight the inevitable apocalypse. That immediate repetition, I feel like, kind of heightens the stakes a little bit because it makes this mission feel almost somewhat desperate and doomed in a really funny way, like he's kind of running out of people and options and patience altogether. And from here, we kind of get an exploration of some of the group members that are going to be joining this ragtag team. And I like how the movie kind of breaks up into different perspectives from characters, almost doing something similar like Weapons did from later last year, where it introduces title cards with each character kind of intercut throughout the main current plot line. I know Weapons isn't the first movie to do it, but just something that kind of of stuck out with me, but I like how the movie was structured in that way. And it makes sense because then you end up kind of caring about every single character. Michael Pena's character was a huge standout for me, and especially his segment. I think it does a great job at kind of grounding the story and kind of exploring that last day before everything goes to shit feel very real, even with its satirical nature. Michael Pena is this substitute teacher in this high school, and he is exploring this commentary about phone obsession, and that commentary is definitely on the nose, especially in those high school settings, but I really did not mind it. It commits fully to that bit and goes full out with its exaggerated nature, and I think that's exactly what makes it work, because it's all that style with a lot of substance as well. And when Michael Pena's character is in this high school, he's all confused and perplexed of why every kid is just on their cell phone, not really knowing if they're allowed to be. And I love that idea and seeing it play out in a classroom setting, because that idea of every kid collectively refusing to get off their phones and then inevitably flipping that power dynamic between the students and the teachers is both hilarious but also weirdly plausible, because that's something that could happen and might happen in the future. And I love the scene after that when Michael Pena's character is in the lunch break room discussing this with all the teachers, and you just see how scared and timid all these teachers are against pushing back from the students, and you really get to see that power shift dynamic kind of play out. And all these teachers are terrified of the kids in the high school, and it's absolutely hilarious when one of the teachers like pulls out these gun-like blasters that block the phone signals, talking about how he's been working on this for a little bit, but just like whips out this thing that looks like a gun in a school lunch break room. It's absolutely absurd, but the logic kind of tracks with the movie's world that it's creating. So scenes like that were just making me die of laughter. And sprinkled throughout the movie, this movie gets way deeper than I anticipated, and I really appreciated its tonal shifts. The movie somehow balances this dry, witty humor with genuinely sad and unsettling material without fully leaning one way or the other, so it really balances that line super well. And I think Susan's storyline is a perfect example of how well this movie can balance that. Her arc is truly heartbreaking, disturbing, and hilarious all at once. We pick up with Susan after she is grieving the loss of her child after a school shooting, and these Men in Black style government agents in this group of women kind of introduce her to a program that actually clones school shooting victims and even clones the shooters as well. So it's for these grieving parents to kind of find a way to kind of get their child back. And the way it's staged when Susan's character goes into the store to figure out what's going on, it reminded me of like a staged Apple Store demo with employees walking around with tablets, asking these personality questions in a way that is so dark and hilarious as they're trying to program Susan's child to match it kind of closely, but not really. And they're limiting the options like with hobbies, interests, and personality traits. So it's just so weirdly uncomfortable, but works in a comedy sense so well. And I love the commentary on technology, and it gets even crazier when she is signing up for this AI replacement of her son, and she decides to get the cheaper discounted version that plays an ad once a day, and it results in her son trying to upsell her, I think it was like a Snapple drink or something, and slight little commentary like that works so well in this movie here. And she ends up going to this support support group for families and has a bunch of really funny interactions with other parents. And she finds out other parents that have gone through the system a couple times and on their third or fourth kid and just trying to have fun with it. So it's so dark, but so funny at the same time. And this is when she meets like another Men in Black agent trying to sell her this better AI version that is just voice, but it is more accurate to the kid and who she actually lost. She ends up going through with that to try and replace her son there, and it's so funny but deeply unsettling, and the movie never lets you forget how messed up this situation is, but just tries to make light of it and does it in such an interesting way. And it's so interesting seeing how Susan makes it to the diner into our main group of people with Sam Rockwell's character. And when she's talking with her son with this new AI, the AI son actually pushes her to go to the diner and says she needs to meet up with this guy in the diner. So it naturally kind of folds her back into that main central plot, just like they did with Michael Peña's character too. And by the time we get to this place in the story, we find out a little bit more about Sam Rockwell's character and what he's actually here to do. And they reveal to us that he is sent back from the future to kill the creator of AI, or at least stop the computer software, who turns out to be this 9-year-old genius that is creating it. And he's a couple hours away from AI gaining consciousness. It's such an amazing genre pivot, in my opinion, because it turns this into like a hyper stylized mix of Back to the Future and Terminator, but really filtered through Verbinski's surreal sensibilities and sense of humor. And I love how we keep finding out more and more about these central characters. For example, we get to shift over to the girl in the dress that looks like a mess. That kind of rhymed. But it is the character of Ingrid. And at first I was like, oh no, this is going to be my first mixed or negative point, because it started off a little too goofy to me, especially with the concept of Ingrid here being the only person on Earth, apparently, that is allergic to technology, cell phones, and Wi-Fi. But this one was one of my favorites and won me over. Ingrid is this character that's allergic to all this technology and Wi-Fi, and she does these birthday parties for kids because these younger kids are ones that aren't really using technology, even though we see it kind of infecting the younger generation slowly throughout the movie. But then she falls in love with this guy who's delivering pizzas to this birthday party, and he is like this modern day hippie that doesn't believe in technology. And she falls in love with this anti-tech hippie. It feels sweet until it genuinely turns disturbing when he secretly ends up ordering this virtual reality headset and slowly starts to disappear into that world. He explains that he's only going to use it when she's at work. And, you know, it's almost like this drug metaphor of like, I'm going to try it just a couple of times. What's the harm in doing something like that? What won me over is the shift in tone with this one when Ingrid goes to work, comes back, finds him home alone late at night, still strapped into that VR device with all the lights off, and he's just kind of like this zombie in this virtual reality headset. It is so creepy and in such a grounded way because it does not feel like a distant future. It feels like a future right around the corner. And we eventually get the progression of this story when her boyfriend here eventually chooses this full-time virtual living simulator and tells her that she's not enough anymore and that he can't go back to the real world after what he just saw in the virtual world. And it genuinely hurt me seeing this play out in the movie. I completely bought into Ingrid's sadness and desperation in this moment, and her decision to just drive off, leave, go to this diner, end up getting swooped up in Sam Rockwell's plotline here, I think was perfect, and it really gives this character a lot of motivation to be a part of this group. But I think one of my favorite parts of this movie, the part that stood out to the most, was Sam Rockwell's character and performance. It is pitch perfect here. Equal parts action hero, mad scientist, and complete goofball, like again, a mix of Doc Brown and the Terminator. And it works so well here. And as we get to the end of the movie, I think that final confrontation with this creepy 9-year-old who is this genius programming the AI is one of the coolest visualizations of AI I've ever seen in a movie. I haven't seen too many representations of it, so maybe it's pulling homage from something, but I adored the final confrontation there. The idea that the main group of characters get to this house and it's just kind of a front hiding this massive cathedral-like space filled with cables, screens, computer wires, with this kid sitting in the center on top of a mountain of computer technology, endlessly coding into an ether, is truly haunting, and it feels like a scene out of the Backrooms if the Backrooms had this giant auditorium. It's artificial, endless, and just feels kind of wrong and scary. And similar to the homages it's playing to Terminator, obviously, I love the twist reveal with Sam Rockwell's character here that he is actually Ingrid's future son, and currently in present day Ingrid is pregnant with him. So very much like that Sarah Connor and John Connor kind of story plot line here. It's a fun homage, but it's emotionally recontextualizing everything that came before it. And that final conversation between Ingrid that comes and saves the day and says fuck it to her technology allergy here, and the AI kid that turns out to be a AI kid as well from that program, probably paid and created to go through with something like this. That conversation is so thoughtful and it is so real because it's debating whether AI and VR is inherently evil or just these tools that humans decided to abuse. It doesn't give any easy answers or maybe really lean one way or the other, and I really appreciated that moral dilemma this movie was exploring. And the ending here, which is one of the most important parts of any movie, really worked for me. I was worried that it started going down this darker kind of ending, and I thought it was going to really ruin the movie for me, but extending it a few minutes longer, it was able to reveal this new plan that embraces AI's inevitability here while using Ingrid's allergy to technology as a weapon, and they have a plan to make everybody allergic to technology to inevitably save humanity. And I think it was the perfect tonal note to really end on here. But with that said, let's jump into the mixed aspects I have for this movie. And the act right before that third act battle with the 9-year-old AI kid gets a little too goofy for me, especially visually. At one point, they have these high schoolers from Michael Pena's school that he was teaching at earlier in the movie wandering around like zombies, holding their phones in front of them, walking and crawling like zombies, chasing these survivors, and it looked a little bit more cheesy rather than unsettling. And I kind of wish if they were going to go that route, maybe making those zombie hordes of children more of an ongoing presence than just kind of a one-time small little battle. And if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, but I'm still so confused with that visualization of the giant cat horse creature that shows up out of nowhere to save Sam Rockwell and his group of survivors from the zombie-like kids chasing them. And I just don't understand where that came from. And I think the visualization of that started to push things just a little too much, where it kind of took me out of the movie just for those brief kind of 5 to 10 minutes. And again, I'm not sure if I just missed something, but I wish the movie better explained why this this timeline out of all the 100 of other timelines is where Sam Rockwell's character finally agrees to bring Ingrid along, because he mentions that this is the first time that he actually agreed to it. And it seemed like he knew that that was his mother. So despite the risk, I'm not sure why he agreed to have her come here, and even at one point kind of almost hesitates to save her and gets mad at her. But it's like, dude, you brought her along, like maybe you should be her personal bodyguard if that's the decision you're making. So maybe a little logic issue right there, but nothing that kind of takes away from the movie. All these mixed ones are kind of nitpicky for me. And lastly here, I feel like with any comedy, at least for ZakIsCinema, some of the humor just didn't land for me. But honestly, this is more of a personal thing. Most comedies to me, I feel like really only hit 50-50 for me. There's only specific comedies. Maybe my humor is just too specific. But anytime I'm watching a comedy, there's always at least 30 to 40% of the jokes that just never really land for me. And it's always so frustrating being that guy that just didn't find something that funny. But this one was unfortunately no exception, where I think the majority of the jokes work and there are some standout hilarious scenes in this movie, but those 30 to 40% of the jokes that fell flat really did fall flat for me. But with that said, I would say overall, good luck, have fun, don't die is a wildly creative, dark, funny sci-fi satire that leans fully into its absurdity while still landing a surprisingly emotional weight and genuinely interesting ideas about technology, grief, and the presence of AI. So for my rating for this movie, I think this easily earns my top of the line rating, where it's a movie I'm going to look to own and buy on 4K and would be more than willing to pay that full price. So you guys have my thoughts here. I think 2026 is off to a fantastic start so far. So if you've seen this movie, please let me know what you thought of it down below here. I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts and feelings on this brand new movie by Gore Verbinski. And if you've seen other Verbinski movies and recommend them, let me know your thoughts and feelings on those down below, because I'd like to check out more of his catalog here. But that's about it. You guys have my thoughts here. I appreciate anybody watching my videos, so thank you so much. And yeah, look forward to more ZakIsCinema coming very soon.